Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live online info session for the negotiation course at Ashton College. My name is CJ McGilvery, and I'm here with the marketing and communications team. I'm also joined by several colleagues. We have Maggie from admissions. We have Rika, also from marketing, who's handling the technical aspects of our session today. And we have Sharon, who is the instructor for our course. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And I'll just do a couple housekeeping notes before we get into the fun part of the presentation. So we do encourage lots of engagement during this session. There is the raise hand function on Zoom. If you have a question and would like to go on microphone, you can also use the chat box or the Q&A box. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, you can leave a comment there. We will be monitoring those comments during the session today. Or if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment there or reach out to us at ceinfo@ashtoncollege.ca or give us a call at 604 891 1256 or toll free at 1 866 759 6006. So, with that, I am going to hand the mic over to Maggie, who's going to chat a little bit about how to sign up for the course. So, over to you, Maggie.
Thank you, CJ. Hello there. I would like to welcome everybody to this live info session for the negotiation course. And my name is Maggie, admissions officer for the Division of Continuing Education. Ashton College offers the live online negotiation training course that will provide additional and supplemental training for those already in careers in a leadership or management role and for those working in human resources. We will learn a lot of information straight from the instructor later on. The upcoming start date is on July 29 till October 13, 2021. And the course duration is 12 weeks and with a total of 36 hours of instruction. Certificate of completion is given at the end of the course upon request. And webinars will be held on Thursdays from 5 p.m. till 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The registration fee for this course is $799. We also offer 10% off your registration fee for the July intake. As mentioned earlier, to register, please visit our website at ashtoncollege.ca, and this is under Continuing Education, Human Resources. And please, your questions are very important to us. Please email us at ceinfo@ashtoncollege.ca or call us at 604-891-1256. Back to you, CJ.
Thanks so much, Maggie. And now I'm very excited to hand it over to Sharon. We have a presentation for today. And after the presentation, I do have a couple questions that I'll be asking, and we'll have time for some questions from our audience members as well. So Sharon, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, CJ. Nice to see everybody.
So I think we're just going to launch the presentation whenever you're ready.
I think I am sharing my screen now.
Yes, looks great on our end.
All right. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So this is just a little teaser for our negotiation course with Ashton Education Online. And so when we talk about negotiation, we really want to consider all of the opportunities that negotiation can provide. This learning objective today is only to identify the factors to a negotiation. And we're going to use a really simple opportunity, such as buying a car. So in negotiation, negotiation will typically only happen if there's some kind of a change, or if two or more people adopt a position about a need or a want, maybe a resource or an idea, in a way that differs somehow from one other person, right? And so sometimes that's about change, and sometimes it's just about new information that we've gotten that we want to learn and use. So some of the things that we want to consider in a negotiation would include who needs to be involved in the negotiation. If there's a decision that needs to be made, are all of the decision makers present, etc. What can be negotiated? So what part of the decision can I make? What part can they make? What influence do we have on the outcome? What points are non-negotiable? So is it a law that's in place that we can't change the law? Or is it some type of a piece of land that we can't change that piece of land, right? And then what could increase my leverage in a negotiation? What is the target point? And we're going to talk about what a target point is today. What, why, and must-haves are absolute for me and for you. And then we're going to talk about WATNA and BATNA and what those are as well. So the scenario today is a vehicle purchase. It's a transactional negotiation, something that most people think, well, you walk in, you see the sticker on the car, you pay the price, you walk out with the car, right? Well, it's not always that cut and dry. So we can have some negotiation leverage sometimes. So counterparts or partners is how we might see the people involved in the negotiation. So who needs to be involved in a car purchase negotiation? It would be a buyer, a salesperson, a buyer's partner or spouse, if they're a decision maker, a sales manager, and likely a finance department or a bank, right? Because often we don't have enough for a vehicle just out of pocket. So for the buyer's point of view, what points could be negotiated? Well, the body color, the type or model, the style, options and additions. Sometimes the pricing certainly can be negotiated. So that is really based on things like floor model or financing available to them. Is there financing through the dealership, and are they able to provide a better rate than maybe a bank, right? And then what kind of extended warranty or reliability can they count on? You know, can I amortize my use of the vehicle over many years? So from again, a buyer's point of view, what points are non-negotiable? Well, for this buyer, the body type must be an SUV and it has to have towing capacity. They've already decided that there's no other vehicle for them. Reliability and safety measures are also important. Financing terms, and then the purchase contract, they have to be able to modify that purchase contract. It can't be unilateral, meaning that they want some negotiating point. Again, for this buyer, what could increase their leverage in the negotiation would be, well, information. They've done their homework. They know what models are available at nearby dealerships, and they know what prices are on those vehicles. They're willing to consider last year's model or floor model or lightly used vehicles. They are willing to accept perks or other options available to them. And then because they've done their homework, they're coming in at a time of year where there are less car sales. And so they know that they're going to be able to get a good deal. So we also look from a buyer's perspective, what is the target point? So their target point is that they want a reliable SUV to carry their family and cargo around with towing capacity for a trailer and bikes, and it has to be within their price range. Their why is really to facilitate the family's desire to explore new places. The kiddos are getting a little bit older, they can be a little bit more independent, and now the family feels like they can travel to visit their BC and Alberta locations. So having a reliable mode of transportation for day-to-day and family outings is really important to this buyer. So the reservation point is the must-have. So it must be an SUV. It must be reliable, mechanically sound. The price must be under $42,000, and financing has to be at about 0.5% because that's what they can get from the bank. So again, from the buyer's point of view, a BATNA, or the best alternative to a negotiated agreement, would be to go to another brand or a dealership or purchase used online. And then WATNA is the worst alternative to a negotiated agreement, and that would be putting more money into maintaining their current car and then having to wait to buy an SUV. So they have a best case option and a worst case option. Now, from the salesperson's point of view, what points could be negotiated? Well, body color, because they have a few, type and model, style, options, and additions, because they can order just about anything. The pricing has to be around $46,000 for this base model that this customer may be looking for. Plus, of course, 7% based on options and 12% floor model, or less 12% for a floor model. So they could even go as low as 40,000 for 80, right? Then the extended warranty option, add 3 years for a total of 5 years for only $1,600. So really, even with the floor model and the extended warranty, they probably could still come in at what this buyer might be looking for, but they haven't talked with the buyer yet. So they also have some service bonuses that they can talk about. What points are not negotiable for the salesperson? Well, base options. There's only certain base options, right? Only a certain starting point. Then the safety features, again, not negotiable. They're legislated. Also, there's only 5 left with certain colors and options that may be most desirable for this buyer. What may increase the leverage for the negotiation of the salesperson? Again, information. They do have several SUV models on their lot that are available. They do have some last year's models available. And the salesperson has a whole bunch of answers to comparisons that is nothing similar to the shiny new model, and then they could throw in a bunch of perks to really make the deal look good. So the target point for the salesperson is just to stay within the price point for full commission, right? So they want to be able to sell the vehicle and they want full commission. Then the salesperson's point of view, again, on their why, well, to make their numbers for the month so that they still get to keep their good sales ratings and pay their mortgage. The salesperson's must or reservation point, which is also called the walk away point, is that if the buyer wants financing below 0.5%, they just can't do it. Anything that's not on the lot, because that's only what the salesperson is able to do for them, and then a price point that eats into their margins, right? So they don't want to give any of their commission away. So the salesperson's point of view, again, their BATNA, their best alternative to a negotiated agreement, is to refer the buyer to another salesperson within their dealership, but then lose commission and a half of a sales rating. Their worst alternative to a negotiated agreement is complete loss of sale and losing commission plus a full sales rating. So the negotiating match points, after these two sit down at the desk and they're able to chat a little bit, they realize that, you know what, we have those body colors, we have the type and style and options and additions that this buyer wants. We have the pricing between $36,000 and $42,000, right? Because we had that floor model that's 12% less than the regular at $40,480, and they can match the 0.5% financing. They do also have an extended warranty, and we know that this buyer is looking for reliability. So that's another match for the two, right? So we can go up to 5 years. That's 5 years of extended warranty. And then service bonuses such as loaner car pickups and extra car washes that'll save about $84 a year for this buyer. Now, the non-negotiable match points are the base options, safety features, and finance terms and contract. The finance terms and contract is nothing that either the seller or the buyer can do anything about, so they'll just have to live with that. The leverage points, though, are the pricing, the bargaining for around that last year or floor model, the extra perks. So those are the ones that they're going to look at. They're going to look only at the cars that fall within last year's model or the floor model. They're going to look at the extra car washes and the free mugs, any extended warranty and service perks, just to make sure that this customer walks away with exactly what they want. So again, the target points that they're able to meet is SUV with towing capacity, reliability increases with extended warranty, within the price range, within the sales point, full commission, and then the financing. Yay. So the why match point really is to maintain or increase their lifestyles, right? So they each have that goal. And this sale is going to do that for both of them. For the buyer, it's going to facilitate the family's desire to explore new places. And for the salesperson, it's going to be able to make their numbers for the month and pay the mortgage. So the reservation match points, again, we covered the price point, that it's on the lot, the cost is more than 42, that, or not more than 42,000, reliability and capacity for towing. All of that is there already for them. Yay, it looks like we might have a good sale. And then the negotiation points, again, that's all the conversation about, well, this older model doesn't have this, but we can add the car washes, or this newer model, floor model, has a couple of scratches, but if you're not worried about the scratches, I'm going to throw in a couple of extra mugs, right? So it's all of those little pieces. Yeah. So there's so much more involved in a negotiation that people don't even consider. So I hope that this has helped you understand a little bit more about what you might want to consider going into a negotiation. And that's just only about a 15-minute part of your 36 hours that you're going to get in this course.
Thank you so much, Sharon. That was fascinating. And I feel like I have a million questions just based on those slides. And I love that you started us off with a case study for this presentation. I think that's really helpful for potential students who are interested in taking the course. And just from, that brief presentation you gave, it was really interesting to see use of the course terminology come up right away and introduce us to some brand new concepts, the best alternative and the worst alternative. That one kind of surprised me and was fun to learn about. And I also really appreciated how I was surprised that there was such an emphasis on the commonalities and the shared points of interest. I think, for someone that doesn't know much about negotiation, I kind of assume that you would just focus on the things we don't agree about. That's kind of where my mind would go right away with that. But your presentation really showed the opposite, which I think is really interesting. So thank you.
Yeah, as a negotiation agent, yeah.
Mhm. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Sorry, there's a bit of a delay on my end. As a negotiation agent, we always look at what all parties involved may want to have and what they may not be able to deliver.
So this actually leads really well into one of the questions that I have on my list for you. So as I said, I don't have a background in negotiation. I'm brand new to the subject, just like our, future students and potential attendees here today. So I was researching a little bit and I found this really fun quote. It's actually from Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't know if folks have heard of that. But in that show, comedian Larry David says, "A good compromise is when both parties are dissatisfied." And I was wondering if there's any truth to that, or if it's a common negotiation myth, or what's your perspective on that?
Certainly in a collective bargaining agreement, sit down, that is definitely the truth. So when we look at negotiations, we do look at it from many perspectives. And we do look at collective bargaining, we look at politics, we look at the day-to-day that people might be involved in, such as employment contracts or purchasing a new car. And so sometimes it is where everybody walks away just a little dissatisfied, but most of the time it's where everybody gets to walk away a lot satisfied.
I love that. Thank you so much for kind of explaining that a little bit for me. And I just thought it was such a funny quote. It's the first thing that pops up when you start researching negotiation or common negotiation ideas. Um, I was also really curious within the structure of the course. Um, do students have the opportunity to practice through practice sessions or exercises where they can test out negotiation skills that they're learning?
Absolutely, yes. So about 6 to 7 hours of our class time is group work. So we get to pick a negotiation topic, and then students get to practice with each other about how would I prepare for this negotiation? What's important to me? What might be important to them? How can I make sure that we both walk away with something that we're going to like in the long term?
Sounds good. I'm just going to check our Q&A. Oh, so we do have a question from one of our attendees. So the question is, When negotiations do not each have a win-win situation, who can retrieve or draw the situation back? I'm not sure if that fully makes sense, but if it's not a win-win situation for both, who can sort of pull that back and create a compromise?
Both or all people that are in the negotiation have that opportunity to pause the negotiation, to consider the options, and then to come back to the table to create the best solution. That's the great thing about being skilled at negotiation, is that you get to create the outcome.
For sure. And I'm curious, do you find that in negotiations, people assume that they have less power than maybe they really do, or less bargaining power? Um, Even just from that question, who has the power here? Who can, pause the negotiation? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we actually talk quite a bit about power balancing and what to do if you don't have power. There's also a lot of conversation around what can be negotiated about and what cannot be. There's very little in our world that cannot be negotiated. And so if there's an agreement between two individuals, we have a lot more latitude. If it's between politicians, between countries, a lot less latitude, because there are all kinds of laws that they have to adhere to. And so again, depending on the subject matter, we often have much more power than we even imagine.
Even though there is that difference in scope, is it a lot of the same skills that a negotiator would use in buying a car versus negotiating a political deal between two countries?
They would be quite different, but the mechanisms or the mechanics of negotiation are very similar. We always want to know just as much about what the other person is interested in as what we're interested in.
Okay,
We
very
also need to
interesting.
understand, we also need to understand what are the negotiating points, what's not negotiable, how can I influence the outcome? Will I be happy with it in the long term? How can they influence the outcome? Will they be happy with it for the long term? Or will we end up back at the negotiation table?
I guess that's the consequence of not taking those things into consideration, is having those kind of band-aid solutions or short-lived agreements that then kind of collapse and require further negotiation, it sounds like. Yeah.
Absolutely. Or a complete collapse of the relationship, and then people go elsewhere.
For sure. So just looking back at my list of questions. So I'm always curious when it comes to a specific career path or, one of our specific continuing education courses, what kind of personality traits are going to really help someone out to succeed in this area? And so I was wondering for negotiation, how about humility and patience? Do those qualities play a role, and can they help someone be a better negotiator?
Absolutely. So I think within the humility, I believe understanding the individual perspective, but then also being very tolerant or having tolerance. And then the other perspective, I think there's so many parts around being a good negotiator. Really having good information and being okay with doing a bit of research, making sure that you have enough time to figure out what is important and then why that's important. And then also making sure that we lay aside our judgments and are able to see things at face value throughout the negotiation.
Hmm. That's lovely. Yeah. Um, so one of the topics covered in this course is creating value. I was really fascinated when I read this. And so without giving too much away, could you just give us a little bit of a hint of what that means to create value in a negotiation scenario?
Absolutely. And again, it has to do a lot with understanding your opponent or your partner, right? It's also about the subject matter, and then making sure that you understand how is this going to change things for people going forward, and then in what ways do I want to present myself in that influence. So putting yourself in the future perspective, or putting your organization in that future perspective.
So it sounds like it really requires long-term thinking. Again, not having those band-aid solutions, but thinking about what is going to be best for the longevity and like the ongoing effectiveness of that relationship.
Yeah. So really good negotiators are often very good problem solvers.
Makes sense. Absolutely. Another of the course topic mentions establishing your own style. Um, that's brand new to me as someone that doesn't have a background in negotiation. Could you give us an example of like what's your negotiation style, or what's a style we may recognize?
Well, much like how you framed it earlier, CJ, humility and patience. I am very gentle on the people and very hard on the problem. I always look at expanding space, expanding opportunity. And so that's the kind of negotiator I am. And when needed, I can come up against the harder negotiator who is it's about the process. It's not about the people. It's about making sure that we go through the process step by step and that we come out with something that we have written on paper. So,
So definitely a lot of different styles out there, but yeah, that's really lovely to hear about your style with the patience and the humility. I'm just going to check our Q&A box. We do have another question. Hmm. So this is a wonderful question. So in family matters, how do you compromise without without giving up in the situation? So within a family context, if you're negotiation, compromising without giving up.
absolutely. So, again, we go right into that human factor, really looking at the people involved. And then what is the individual's toleration? So, not only ourselves, but the person that we're trying to negotiate with, what is their toleration of, or their bandwidth for energy in what they're able to give at this time? And is it something that needs to be decided today? Or can we try to plan a little bit ahead for tomorrow by having small parts of conversations along the way? Quite often, family, it's the long-term relationship that we want to attend to. And every negotiation that happens in between there is really less relevant than the long-term relationship. So we just want to really be careful about attending to relationships in employment, in family, in a lot of those aspects where the people matter sometimes more than the decision in the moment.
Hmm. Would you say that the negotiation technique or the approach can change radically depending on where that priority falls? If the objective is the number one thing that has to be accomplished, or if the relationship is the number one thing that has to be prioritized, does it affect the approach?
I'm not sure that it affects the approach. I mean, even when we're talking politics, when we have political figures who are wanting to negotiate a deal, quite often politicians are in office for 2 to 3 to 5 and sometimes 20 plus years. And so the relationship always matters, right? So the style, or not necessarily the style, but the style and process do need to make sure that we're not too short-sighted, and that when we're talking about family, the changes that may be different than with transactional, like the car one that we looked at, or political, where it is sometimes highly transactional, is that we get to add about 3 or 4 more elements in there when we look at time expansion. And yeah, and so we're going to talk about that in the course. We're also going to talk about, because when we're in a family, others can influence our ideas from day to day. And so we're going to talk about expanding that prism a little bit, also to include influences from other family members, and then how we affect how our decisions are affecting those other family members as well.
Amazing.
So yeah, we're going to cover all those layers and all of those prisms and all of that with stuff.
Well, I definitely don't want to give away too much today. I'm very excited for students who are going to get to take this course with you. I think that was a wonderful introduction and a case study and a kind of taste of what your lectures look like, which I now know what they look like because I've been in your class. I just want to give another shout out to our attendees. If you do have any more questions, now would be a great time. You can put those in the chat box or the Q&A box. Facebook Live, you can leave us a comment, or on YouTube, you can leave us a comment. Some of us like to sit with our thoughts a little bit and the questions come later, which is perfectly all right. You can email us at ceinfo@ashtoncollege.ca or give us a call at 604-891-1256 or toll free at 1-866-759-6006. And Sharon, so I think we'll give a moment just to see if anyone does have any final questions for you. But while we wait for them, I do have a final question for you. Just a fun one. What is your favorite thing about teaching this course?
Really understanding the students and helping them to discover, the students themselves, to discover what works for me as an individual, and then what works for my situation, whether again it's family or workplace or whatever their situation is, and really helping them discover, so who am I in this, and how does this count for me, and how is this going to shape me in the future. I just love that part, and it's such a growth experience for, I see so much growth experience in all of the students. It's so much fun to watch.
It's really inspiring to hear about as well. So thank you so much for your time today, and thank you to all of our attendees for joining us, and to Rika on the back end, handling all the technical aspects, and to Maggie for sharing about the admissions process. Folks, please do feel free to reach out anytime if you have more questions, as I mentioned before. And I think with that, I'll just wish everyone a great, wonderful rest of your week.